Hi traders, welcome to my video analysis brought to you by Add More Markets. Today's focus is the dollar yen, which had a massive breakout on Friday. But before we take a look at that particular pair and others like the euro dollar, pound dollar, and Aussie, first of all, this disclaimer explaining that this video analysis may not be suitable for all attendees as it is intended for a global audience. Check out the details at www.addmoremarketsglobal.com. Also, please be aware that trading is considered high risk and it may not be suitable for all traders and investors. Please therefore seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this video analysis is not advice and is for educational and informational purposes only. Alright, before we take a look at the charts and price action, please be aware that Netted has a weekly Forex recap on the EU, GU, and AU on Mondays always. Wednesday, Netted's going to take a look at gaps during expert advice. And on Tuesday and Wednesday, we all have live trading labs on the trend lines and the Forex strategy on Wednesday. The Pro Learning Lab, by the way, on Thursday is taking a look at why 7 reasons for finding your weakness is key. First things first, let's start with the dollar yen, daily chart. And you can see, of course, after price making a good uptrend break of this trend line, we get a pullback to the 50 fib and a very strong continuation. In fact, if we zoom into that daily breakout candle here that was towering above the 110 resistance spot, it is a whopping 325 pips, of which basically just a tad of a wick, only about 20 pips, which is less than 10% of that entire candle. Which means that basically the bulls were in control and stayed in control throughout that entire day. And not only that, but because of that, we have a massive weekly candle and even a pretty big monthly candle just because of that one day. All in all, this means particularly that we are getting a big uptrend continuation after a pullback. So we had the typical break, pullback, and continuation scenario here on the dollar yen, and now looking for more follow through after those big bullish candles. Now the levels that I'm thinking about trading for the dollar yen uptrend continuation are as follows. When we zoom back to the daily chart, we can take a look at that big bullish candle that closed clearly above the 110 resistance level, and I would not expect price to break that particular low for at least a time being, particularly this week or maybe even this month, to be honest. So that 109 level, 109.17, is, in my opinion, the place where a stop loss would be actually a good hiding spot there. So any retracement to any of these fibs could be this bouncing spot. So I prefer to split the risk into multiple positions and see how far price could retrace. It could be very shallow to, for instance, the 23.6 or 38.2 fib. It could perhaps go as deep as a 78.6 fib, but I don't expect price to go lower than that because the broken top 110 level, that of course caused price to make that big fall back to 105 to the previous top, in fact, and bounce up again, is of course a strong support level. So this green horizontal level is the max I would expect price to go, and probably would be the last bouncing spot for upside continuation to the targets, to the minus 272 target at 114, and then perhaps the minus 618 target, which wouldn't surprise me, at 115.30. Of course, to place the entire structure here in context, we are in a massive uptrend here dating back to 3 years ago when we had the first upsides here, and then a massive one here, and most recently in August of this year, starting this upside, we had a pullback here to that 105 level and now getting again the upside. So this, of course, is already in a big uptrend for 3 years with some periods of consolidation here in the red, and the green, of course, the upside impulse, very strong and going very far. So we've been focusing on the most recent break, pullback, and continue, but you can see that it's within a bigger context of an uptrend. And in fact, if you look at the last week's weekly candle, it's probably the biggest weekly candle, or one of the biggest, in the entire upside. So in that regard, I'm expecting upside continuation here on the dollar yen. One more last thing on the dollar yen 1 hour chart could be the usage of, for instance, pivot points. Obviously daily, weekly, monthly pivot points could all be bouncing spots for that uptrend continuation. Monthly is actually right at the 110 support level, so that's another confluence. The weekly is about 110.80 and then the 111.30. So if we put that fib back on, you can see that there is some confluence there between, I have the wrong fib, one second. Here, confluence between the monthly 78.6 and the daily 50 and the weekly 61.8. All right, moving over to the euro dollar hourly chart. Same scenario basically, in a downtrend after a very good break of this channel, which in retrospect we can see was a bear flag, and we had a good fall after that. Now looking for basically a continuation of the euro dollar downtrend as well. We broke, or the euro dollar broke 125 support level right in here indicated by the green line. So all these pivot points are above us. Here too, looking for follow through to the downside. If we look at the daily chart, here too, the euro dollar in a very strong downtrend, of course, and most recently we've had bearish candles. So looking for more follow through on that particular pair. However, considering the current position, I would rather have a bit of a pullback to, for instance, those pivot points on the hourly chart before taking new shorts. On the weekly and monthly, we would also see bearish candles. Basically, last week was bearish and last month was bearish. So all of that trend is bearish. Now the target of that bearishness, in my opinion, for the moment, now that we broke 125 bottom, is in fact the minus 272 target off of this weekly or daily chart at 121.70ish right here, just below, excuse me, just above the 120.50 bottom of the weekly chart. Now the dollar strength, of course, is very visible against the yen and some yen weakness as well. Of course, the dollar strength visible against the euro, but the pound is a bit different. The pound dollar did not break the bottom here at 158ish. Let's see, 158.80. So this is not as weak as the others, and you can see the pound dollar having some wicks at the bottom. So although it's bearish, the trend is obviously down with lower lows and lower highs. I'm a bit more cautious with this pound dollar. There could be some short opportunities as price maybe retraces back up for more downside, or even if price were to break, for instance, this trend line here for downside. But it is not as smooth and as bearish, as strong of a trend, I should say, on the dollar as with the other pairs. And then last but not least, the AUDUSD, also very strong down momentum, but a very big consolidation. And it looks like a massive bear flag. In fact, we had a break of this particular orange trend line, which I said in the trading room last week I thought would be probably false. That turned out to be partly true. It took a while before it turned around, but it was eventually not a sustainable break indeed. Now, that particular half a false break here wound up indeed as the starting spot for this break of the bear flag. And you can see price indeed is below that bear flag. So for the moment, we are still above the bottom of 86.50, just like the pound dollar is above the bottom. But there is a very strong bearish momentum here. There is a very slow corrective sideways flag, in fact. So when a flag like that breaks, there is always, of course, a good opportunity to look for follow through, and eventually price could break through the bottom. So yes, I am bearish. We see a bit of a difference with the dollar yen and euro dollar here with the Aussie as well, but it is not a bad situation to be in. Price could, for instance, maybe hook back to the pivots and the broken trend line for resistance and a potential bounce back into that downtrend and continuation. So that could happen on the AUDUSD. I'm particularly keeping an eye on this zone right in here, even the weekly, as pullback levels for follow through to the downside, and would not expect price basically to go above this green level here. Otherwise, the breakout, in fact, seems false. All right, that wraps up today's video analysis. Make sure to check out our webinars this week. Hope to see you in one or all of those, in fact. Check out Admiral Markets, of course, in social media. And I wish you all happy hunting and good trading. Cheers.